Hi, this is Tucker, and this is vocab list number 4. As usual, please take Cornell Notes on the words and the definitions and write down any alternate definitions, any examples, any root words that I pull out that you think will be helpful for you in remembering these words. So the first word is aberration, which is a noun, and it means deviation from a right, customary, or prescribed course, usually like course of action. So if you deviate, that means you move away from or you change. If you deviate from the right course or the customary course, that means you're changing courses. So maybe you're expected to act a certain way or follow a certain path. Think about what your parents expect from you in terms of high school. Great. Sorry about that. So think about what your parents expect from you after high school. Maybe they expect you to go to college. But if you decide, you know what, I don't want to go to college. I want to pursue, this other career. I want to go travel, or I want to do something different, then that would be an aberration. You're not doing what's expected, what's customary, so what most people do. You're not following the prescribed course, the course that has been laid out for you. Number 2 is ambiguous, and something that is ambiguous, so this is a describing word, has more than one meaning. So they say have a double meaning, but if something's ambiguous, the meaning either may not be clear or something might have more than one meaning, which also makes the actual meaning kind of unclear because you don't know whether it's this meaning or that meaning. So if someone says something and you can't really tell what they mean, maybe they're being a little ambiguous or a little vague, or maybe they're trying not to be specific on purpose so that you're kind of left to wonder what it is that they mean. 3 is breach, and a breach is a violation, usually of like an official duty or something, some law or some legal obligation. So if a lot of times you'll hear this word in the context of like a contract, so a breach of contract, which means you have signed a contract saying that you're going to do something. A breach of that contract means you have violated it in some way. You did something that you were not supposed to do. Number 4 is despondent. And this describes someone who is disheartened. They're hard to kind of connect with because maybe they're depressed. They're fairly unattached because of their emotional state. So someone who is despondent is disheartened. They're depressed. They tend to be kind of isolated. 5 is excerpt, and an excerpt is a section of writing from a larger piece of writing. So, for example, on like exams, standardized exams, oftentimes you'll ask to read an excerpt from a play or a book and then answer questions about it, which means they're using a small section from the larger play or the larger novel or book, and you're just reading that section. So an excerpt is just a small section of a larger piece of writing. Indignant. To be indignant is, and this is a describing word, so when someone is described as indignant, they have such anger and such scorn as is aroused by meanness or wickedness. So when someone is mean to you or wicked towards you, the anger, the scorn that you feel, the noun form of this word is indignation. But to be indignant is to have anger and scorn that has been aroused by maybe somebody being mean to you or being wicked to you. Irrational, and again we're starting with the IR, meaning the opposite of rational. So someone who's rational is very logical. Someone who is irrational is not logical. They do not possess reasoning powers, logical reasoning powers, or understanding of a situation. A lot of times we can be momentarily irrational, which means we might struggle to understand something in a moment because we're so angry or we're so excited or we're so, upset. So sometimes when I'm trying to explain to, my children why they can't, have ice cream at 7:30 at night, they get so upset, they're unable to understand that should they have ice cream at night, that's a lot of sugar, it's not good for them, it's going to keep them up, and they can be irrational, and they have all these arguments for why it would be great if we all ate ice cream at 7:30 at night, right? So it's not like they're always irrational, but there's sometimes when we're emotional or we really want something or we're worked up where we tend to have trouble, with reasoning, our normal reasoning. We don't reason like we normally would. Number 8 is morality, and a person's morality is their virtue. Think of virtue, values, think of a person's morals, okay? So morality being your moral compass, what you know to be right, so it's your virtues. 9 is patronize, and to patronize someone is to exercise an arrogant condescension towards them. So what does this mean? When you patronize someone, you treat them as though they are less than you. You are arrogant towards them. You condescend, which means you almost have to lower yourself to their level just so that they will understand you, because you're maybe so much smarter than them, or so much wiser than them, or you know so much more about something. So when sometimes teenagers feel like adults are patronizing, that they treat them as though they're children, or as though they're like up to no good, or they don't know as much as adults. And sometimes they don't know as much, but there's a way that you can talk to somebody who doesn't know as much as you, where you're helping them to understand. But when you patronize someone, you treat them as though they are less than you because they don't know as much as you, or because they haven't lived as long as you. 10 is rectify. To rectify something or a situation means to correct. So if I hand out an assignment and I put some incorrect information on this assignment, I will need to rectify that and give you all the correct information. If you have had an argument with a friend, you might want to rectify that situation and apologize and talk to them. So it just means to correct. 11 is satiate, and to satiate is to satisfy. And maybe just thinking about this SAT at the beginning of satiate and the SAT at the beginning of satisfy will help you remember that to satiate is to fully satisfy your appetite, whether that's for a food or your desire for something. So if you really want to go for a jog, or you really want to, whatever, if you're able to do that, you're able to satisfy that appetite or that desire, you have satiated it. 12 is subordinate, and here we go again with the SUB, meaning below. And remember our last list, we had subjugate, which means to conquer, to push below. Well, subordinate means belonging to an inferior order, an inferior class, an inferior group. So a subordinate, or a subordinate means someone who is below you. So in a company, you have like the CEO at the top, and then other people in different departments are underneath that CEO, the head of the company, right? So they are, the subordinates in that company. Subordinate, tomato, you can kind of say it however you want. I've heard it both ways. But it just means to be below, okay, in some kind of category, whether it's a social class or a work environment. You are below somebody else if you are subordinate. Number 13 is transcend, and this is a verb, and transcend means to surpass, which means to go beyond or above. So sometimes, somebody who is very patient or very kind can transcend a bad situation by not getting caught up in it. So anytime you're transcending, you're kind of moving beyond, moving above. It has a very positive connotation when you transcend something. 14 is vigilant. And someone who is described as vigilant, so as an adjective, is very alert. And usually they're alert because they want to discover, or they want to be aware of any danger, or they want to make sure that they're safe. So, if I'm walking to my car and it's at nighttime and it's in a parking structure, I am going to be very vigilant because I want to make sure I'm not hearing anybody walking behind me, that there's nobody near or around me that could be a danger to me. So I'm very alert, vigilant. 15 is whimsical. And remember, in our last list, we had the word capricious. This is a synonym. Someone who is whimsical is given to fanciful notions or ideas. They kind of just do whatever they want. If they get an idea in their head, they'll go do it. They're not going to worry too much about the details or the consequences. They tend to be very kind of light-hearted, light-spirited people. So someone who's described as whimsical is maybe very spontaneous, very carefree.